Great. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for the Uranus North Node and Mars conjunction free of charge webinar. Once a month, I tend to do these webinars just because each month there are some very important events happening, and I want to be able to give you a little bit of something back to the community where you can learn astrology, but you can also prepare yourself for the upcoming changes. This decade, I would say, is an extremely difficult decade. I'm sure you are aware of that. So you are going to be hearing from me quite often, just to make sure that you are prepared as much as possible for the upcoming changes. One of the reasons why this is a huge decade, because we've got actually 7 planetary cycles starting, and that's actually starting in the first 6 years of of this decade. So obviously we had the Saturn Jupiter conjunction happening. We already had the Neptune and Jupiter conjunction. We are going to be actually having this Uranus and the North Node conjunction. So we've got 7 of these planetary cycles. And the more we have kind of like within a short period of time, the harder those decades tends to be. So yeah, we do need to be very aware of these energies so that we can prepare and we can use the highest manifestation. Now, just a quick announcement. So I've made this webinar for you. It does take quite a long time. And then if you can afford or if you wish, then please, you can donate on my website if you like this webinar. But more importantly, I would like you to ask to share this with others as well, because I've tried to put as much valuable information into this webinar as possible. Another thing which I wanted to mention is that we are going to be talking about archetypal type of meaning of these. Okay, most probably I'm going to be listing you hundreds of possibility of what could happen in the next 15 years, but it doesn't mean that every single of them are going to be happening. So that's actually very important to mention. I don't see this conjunction to be super good. So unfortunately today I'm going to be more on the negative side. Okay, but I try to put together some positive outcomes of these Uranus-Mars North Node conjunction, because I truly believe that the more people we share it with, the more actually we will be able to, kind of spread the word of how to use this planetary energy. So it does depend on us, how are we going to play out the cards, basically. So one of the reasons why I picked this topic this month to hold a webinar about is because Uranus and the North Node approximately meets every 15 years. We are going to be looking at the Mars, even though Uranus and North Node conjunction happens on 18 degrees of Taurus, but Mars is on 17 degrees. So it's very close by, and therefore he is playing definitely a huge role in this conjunction also. So as I mentioned, Uranus and the North Node conjunction happens every 15 years. So it's kind of like whatever I'm actually talking to you about, most probably these predictions are going to be valid in the next 15 years. So I would like to point out that do not expect that, the exact conjunction is going to be happening on 31st of July, or it's going to be happening on 1st of August, depending on where you are, that something should be happening, because I do see this quite often on social media channels. Oh, we just had the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. You know what? Nothing happened. Well, do not expect that to happen, because that's a 13-year-old cycle. You should remember that conjunction is about planting the seeds so that something actually can work out of that. So it really depends on you how you're going to play the cards. Okay. So this is a very rare conjunction, by the way, because the fact that Mars is in the picture also, the same constellation actually happened before Christ 325. So you can see that that wasn't yesterday. So just to give you again the degrees very quickly, it happens on 18th degree of Taurus. It's going to be peaking on 31st of July or 1st of August, depending on your location. But you will start feeling its energy from the 22nd of July till about 15th of August, because these planetary energies will be in orb. Actually, I would tell you that I think you are going to be feeling this also in 2023 as well, quite strongly. Why I believe that? The reason why I believe that is because Uranus will actually station retrograde on 18 degree of Taurus, and that's going to be happening on 24th degree of 24th of August. And Uranus will go back to 14 degree of Taurus when it actually changes direction again in January 2023. And then it's going to be hitting again the 18 degree of Taurus in April 2023. So therefore, Uranus will be there till the beginning of June 2023. This is one of the reasons why whatever we are talking about, it's almost definitely going to be lasting for a year. Another reason is why we are going to be feeling this in a longer period is because Saturn will be squaring this point on 18 degree of Aquarius, where Saturn, of course, is going to turn direct. So Saturn at the moment is walking backwards. It's in a retrograde motion. It's walking back towards that 18 degree. It's already within orb from Uranus. And to be frank, looking at the social media and reading some articles, actually, it's kind of obvious that the Saturn and the Uranus aspect is already in motion. Why is that? Because you can see how many flight problems there are in the world, how many restrictions there are, especially towards British people, for instance, that, I don't know, they can only be drinking 6 cocktails a day, or you cannot walk without t-shirt in the street, even if it's very hot. And we do know that actually the weather in Spain and Italy are extremely dry, and then they haven't seen any kind of rain for a while. And also, British Airways just recently announced that they are expecting some problem, most probably till the end of the year, with their flights. And unfortunately, they're going to have to kind of partner up with other airlines to kind of meet the demand and so forth. So that's kind of like one of the analogy of this Saturn and Uranus energy anyway. So, but you are going to be feeling this on a personal level, especially if you have got any planets on 18, let's say between 17 to 19 degree of Taurus, or any of the fixed signs especially. So what are the fixed signs? It's going to be Taurus and Scorpio and Leo and Aquarius. Do you have any planets between, let's say, 17 to 19 degree? Why? The reason why, because as I mentioned to you, Uranus will be turning retrograde on 18 degrees. So there is no point in looking more ahead, right? There is no point in looking at 20 or 22 degree, because those are going to be getting activated for you just at the end of 2023. Okay, so those people who have got their angles or any planets on 17, 18, or 19 degree, especially the fixed signs. So let's just have a look at, from an archetypal point of view, what Taurus is about in a very short way. So Taurus rules over something to do with your net worth. How much do I think about myself? Do I actually believe in myself? What is it? Does it matter actually what other people believe about me? Because ideally speaking, you should learn to kind of know your own net worth. What I kind of mean by that is that, let's say you are working in a you are an astrologer and then you are only charging $20 for a reading. Is that actually right, or is that not right? Do we need to drop the prices? Do we need to increase the prices? So you're going to have to look at your net worth. But also it is talking about looking at the fundamentals of everything around you. Do I need to be looking at my financial statement? Do I spend too much money? Do I not spend too much money? Am I a little bit stingy? Or let's say I want to be investing into something. Taurus actually talks about investments. It is about your assets. And the assets are not just physical, but actually mental assets as well. So it really talks about your talents. And if we start thinking about these planetary archetypes, Uranus is something to do with a divine insight. It's a brilliant, genius idea. And Mars, yes, definitely, Mars has got some type of debilitation going on in the sign of Taurus, but Mars is very focused on achieving something in the sign of Taurus. Yeah, debilitation, yeah, it's a little bit of a frustrated planetary energy, but Mars here is actually not as speedy as, for instance, in the sign of Aries. It has got some calculative moves, and then it's kind of trying to get to the at the end of the tunnel so that they can claim the prize. And Mars in Taurus is actually very good for that. And the North Node is something to do with growth. So it's a period of time when we're going to have to start thinking about how can I grow? How can I implement some of my great ideas? And then how can I actually kind of have a winning mindset about it? And then once I have got all these brilliant advancements, how can I make some type of money out of it? But of course, Taurus does talk about our stability in life. Do I feel secure? Do I not feel secure in my own skin, as well as in the environment I am in? And also, it does talk about your self-worth. Do I think about myself, well enough, or do I actually allow others to kind of control me? It's kind of like what's important to you in life. And these are the major questions that Taurus is going to be bringing us. Also, Taurus does rule anything over food, something which we put into our body. So do I want to eat healthier? Do I feel like I need to be losing weight? Do I need to put on weight? Do I need to take pills or do I not need to take pills? And all those type of things. Kind of Taurus wants to remind you that body is very important. That's kind of like the physical form of your soul. And if you nurture your body, you are going to be nurturing your soul as well. But that's true the other way around also. So if I nurture my soul, and that's one of the reasons why Moon is the exalted ruler of Taurus, right? Because the body and the soul are in connection. They don't work without each other. So both needs to be equally nurtured if we want that Taurian part of our chart to work extremely well. And of course, if you start thinking about that moon, which is something to do with the roots, right? So the Taurian energy always invites you to kind of look at the roots, where certain things are coming from. This is one of the reasons why some astrologers kind of believe that the second house actually rules family, is because the moon would be the exalted ruler of Taurus, and Taurus actually rules Taurus rules the second house from an archetypical point of view. But I kind of look at the second house also as something which I have inherited from my family. So, of course, let's say we've got Saturn in the second house. In many cases, it kind of indicates that, let's say, the family supported me at a very young age, or even, financially, I mean, or even in my 20s. But also, it can indicate that I grew up in a very poor family. And then, of course, I've got some limitations around money and how I kind of feel about myself. So, what I'm trying to um, um, kind of refer to is that you're going to have to look at the fundamentals with this Taurian house to actually make everything around you as secure as possible on a physical but on an emotional level as well. I kind of find it interesting, and sorry for talking about this a little bit longer, but I kind of feel like it needs to be understood that if Moon is the exalted ruler of Taurus, so when I'm not feeling good in my own skin, Moon, because I've got all these emotional ups and downs, then I'm not going to be able to manifest anything, build anything tangible, Taurus, in the physical world either. So we're going to have to kind of realize how important that is. And Uranus and Mars wants you to cut out all the crap from your life, something which does not work. And Uranus wants you to have this genius idea to kind of get out of your comfort zone. And these two speedy planets, because what happens here is that Uranus electrifies Mars, and Mars kind of wants to do things quickly. So you can have these quick flashes of light in your head that this is my destiny, and I am actually meant to be stepping onto that. If you are holding on to something such as, oh no, I cannot, I don't know, get divorced because, I don't know, I need money, for instance, then you are not going to be happy. You are not feeding your soul. And then maybe we're going to start putting on weight. Maybe we're going to have some health issues. And those are all Taurian related matters. So that's why Taurus actually represents the self-worth. How you feel inside is going to get mirrored through your body, but the other way around also. So I hope that makes sense for you. So Uranus has not been on 18 degree of Taurus since 1935. We are going to be looking at the whole chart of this Uranus North Node Mars conjunction anyway, and we are going to be exploring very interesting historical matters, which are going to be very helpful to tell us what to expect from this conjunction. But further questions, what this Taurus energy kind of brings up for us, the fact that Uranus hits the 18th degree, the very first time since 1935, Uranus is unpredictable. Uranus is something which is shaking up the grounds. So what you assume at the moment or what you find stable in your life, believe me, it's not going to be stable anymore in the next 15 years. Most probably, some of your belief systems are going to get shaken up in the next, let's put it this way, 11 months. Because what Uranus does is kind of create chaos. And Taurus doesn't like chaos. So this is a very challenging position actually for Uranus from a modern point of view. Uranus has got a fall position in the sign of Taurus. So it can be quite challenging. Uranus is kind of like a lightning bolt. It's kind of like a lightning strike. So obviously you cannot really predict it because it happens so fast. You won't be able to see that the lightning strike is coming. So it does allow us though to prepare for something, but it's kind of like always a very last moment of decision, what we're gonna have to make with Uranus and especially with Mars there now. So one of the questions you might want to be asking yourself is that, are you ready to make changes in your lives? Are you ready to take on different challenges? Do you feel that you are stuck and you need something refreshing? Because you're going to have to start taking action about it. And that's the Mars energy there. Kind of like think about it this way. What is certain for you at the moment, that's not going to be certain anymore. Even though if you don't want to be making radical changes in your life, but this Uranus and Mars really tells you to have a backup plan, at least. So you think that your job is the most secure one ever, then Uranus and Mars say, don't think that for a second, have a backup plan. What you gonna do if you don't have a job? I would like to just reiterate again, this is a very challenging combination. So unfortunately, As far as I have tried to put together as many positive ideas about this conjunction, but 80% of my lecture today is going to be quite gloomy. If you have got any ideas of what to expect from this Uranus, Mars, and North Node conjunction, please pop it into the chat box or drop me an email. I might add them to the slides if I agree with them. But I kind of spent 2 days cracking my head, of looking at all these past events and so forth to kind of have a clear idea about what I'm expecting from this conjunction. Of course, the other side of the coin is that if you don't have any stability in your life, then what could happen here is that our desire for stability can increase quite a lot. And Uranus is the planet of freedom. So one of the questions could be here is that, and of course, Mars is the planet of individuality, and I want to be doing something on my own. So some of the questions it might pop up here with this conjunction is that, am I actually be able to make my own money without any type of codependency with others? But also, this could talk about how can I liberate myself financially? What can I do, Mars, to gain more money, North Node in Taurus, in a very quick way? And that would be the Uranian energy there. Of course, Taurus also talks about art and to a certain extent creativity. And you might start craving to have, to do something artistic. To be frank, I don't think art is going to be important, but I don't think this is going to be the very first thing we are going to be actually seeing with this Uranus, Mars, and North Node conjunction. Also, don't forget that Taurus is a fixed sign. So the danger of the fixed signs that they move very slowly. And Uranus and Mars want you to be very speedy. So again, this is a challenging energy here. Are you going to be sitting on your laurels, or are you going to be looking for opportunities? And that you're going to have to be keeping right in front of you. Now, of course, Uranus and Mars, from a planetary cycle point of view, it's not necessarily the most exciting one because they tend to be meeting approximately every 2.5 years. So that's not about the uniqueness. The uniqueness of this constellation is that Uranus is actually meeting up North Node, and this time around, Mars joins also. Now, from a traditional point of view, Mars is a malefic planet. So therefore, it tends to be kind of, acting a little bit negatively. Do I fully agree with that? Not necessarily. I think Mars, if it has got the eye on the prize, and you should not forget that Mars is actually exalted in the sign of Capricorn. So Mars gets out of the bed each morning to become Capricorn, okay? So if you have got the eyes on the prize, then this Mars can be extremely positive. Yes, maybe it's going to be pushing some competitions away on the road, but it wants to get somewhere. So you're going to have to awaken that inner warrior within you, especially if you've got some great ideas of how far you want to get to. And remember, Uranus is the planet of sky. So one of the interpretation of this Uranus Mars North Node energy is that I want to reach the skies as fast as possible. So this is kind of like reminding me of a 19, 20-year-old boy, who thinks that the world is theirs. And I walk into a workplace and, I'm meant to be not bossed around. I'm kind of a boss myself, and then I'm going to be tossing people around. That's the kind of like energy vibe this Uranus and the Mars gives me. So of course, this could really talk about some shocking results. For instance, when it comes to technological advancements, Mars is the engineering, Uranus is technological advancements. Actually, Uranus rules, for instance, anything to do with transportation in the air, so airplanes, and it could really, and Mars is the engine, so it's very possible that we're going to have some very speedy airplanes are coming up. You know, for instance, personally speaking, I hate long journeys. You know, I'm kind of pooing my pants of going to Thailand next week because it's almost a 10-hour flight. But, you know, in the next 15 years, I'm very certain that there will be planes which is going to be able to get them maybe within 3-4 hours. They are going to be very speedy. And maybe the Uranus and the Mars North-Node conjunction is just going to be the planting the seeds period, where they're going to start experimenting, where they're going to start putting the plans together, and so forth. But also, of course, both planets are a little bit more on the malefic side. So probably if we kind of go on with this scenario of having these very speedy trains and very speedy airplanes and so forth, most probably we should be expecting some kind of like accidents with it. Because what happens with Uranus, that Uranus always comes with an element of disruption. It is not given kind of freely and immediately. There is always kind of like a little bit of a sacrifice to make if you kind of understand that. But also Mars is the planet of anger and frustration. So, and Uranus can electrify that. So this could be it could be a period of time when people are going to get angry about something. Maybe it leads to a riot. Maybe it's going to be a protest about something. Maybe, and of course, think about it, it's Taurus. Maybe it's going to be food prices related, food related problems, most probably. And people might decide, you know what? Something just came to my mind, and I wanted to check that before the lecture, but I kind of forgot. So therefore, I'm just going to check it now. What I wanted to check is that in 2011, August 6th, we had riots starting in London. And it kind of lasted for about 6 days. 6 days. And what happened is that they were obviously kind of breaking into shops and they stole everything and then they damaged everything. And I forgot to check it, but I wanted to see if there was any type of Mars or Uranus energy going on. And maybe it was just about a square, maybe it was an opposition. And can you see that we had a square going on? I'm not shocked about it, actually, at all, because this is a, this is a riot is typically a Uranus and the Mars aspect. Sorry about checking that, but I was very certain that there was some Mars and Uranus energy going on. So unfortunately, something like that can again happen. And also going back to that chart, you can see that actually Mars was in the sign of Cancer. Now we do have got two signs which are related to food. One of them is Taurus, the other one is actually Cancer. And there are kind of like two planets which are in charge of food, and that's going to be the moon, and the other one is Ceres. And I kind of find it interesting that Ceres just on 0 degree there, and of course it's bang on squaring Mars also. Anyway, we are not here to talk about the riots, but we might need to be actually thinking about something like that it's very possible. Also, what usually happens with Mars is that it kind of escalates things. So Mars is the planet of war and disputes and arguments. And with Uranus, we can have really nasty arguments with other people. And maybe it's about money, and maybe it's about assets, maybe it's about property and land and all those type of things. But probably this conjunction really talks about to cool down a little bit. Now, the fact that we do have got North Node there, which has got a tendency to amplify things, the danger of that is that kind of like, I'm having an argument with someone and all of a sudden I'm going to be punching them in the face because I really get kind of hyped up overall. And what happens with Uranus, which kind of represents the lightning bolt, and obviously that kind of strikes into something, obviously that is going to be collapsing. The three major meaning of Uranus is breakup, breakdown, and breakthroughs. And kind of like there is this order how it happens. What usually happens is that the first step with Uranus is always the breakdown element. Something needs to kind of collapse. And then after, all of a sudden, we're gonna have a breakup from something. So we're gonna have to leave something in the past, because remember that Uranus is very futuristic. It's only looking forward, it doesn't look backwards. So we're gonna have to kind of leave something behind, and then eventually we are there, and then we're making a huge breakthrough. So the very first period when Uranus kind of, with this Mars energy, it typically talks about breakdowns. And in the sign of Taurus, it's about breaking down some of our walls around us, or as I said, some of our limitations, self-worth matters, and so forth, whatever we kind of mentioned so far in regards to Taurus. Uranus and the Mars together tends to be always bringing some industrial changes in the world. But we're going to be looking at some examples. Yes, Uranus and Mars cycles tend to bring accidents also. So we should be expecting that on a personal as well as on a collective level. And that typically comes from any type of experiments. Now, what is Uranus' role? Uranus says that, some things are actually outdated in our lives, especially in the sign of Taurus. And Mars kind of wants to cut that away, whatever is outdated. Mars is about fighting for something. The higher manifestation of Mars is fighting for not just ourselves, but for the underdog. Mars' highest manifestation is to motivate others to achieve their greatest form. That's why Mars is very good for like a coach or a soldier. We should remember that Mars represents knife, and the knife has got two sides, right? One of them, which is actually cutting you very deep, and they can hurt you extremely bad, extreme and badly. But the other side is actually kind of unable to harm you. That's more about just spreading the butter on the bread, right? So it's very much about motivating others. And then when it comes together with Uranus, these two becomes extremely explosive. Imagine this as a volcano eruption. It happens in a very quick manner, and then people kind of loses their head, and then they're running like chicken without heads, and they don't stop for a second to think about it. So Mars is in fighting for something. In many cases, Mars and Uranus fights for freedom together. If we looked at the history of Uranus, so firstly, a couple of things we should remember from a historical point of view. Uranus is the planet of sky, and he was very unfaithful to Gaia. Basically, Uranus was the son of Gaia, but they kind of got into relationship and they had children. They actually had 12 titans, and one of them was actually Saturn. And Saturn was the smallest one. And Saturn kind of got fed up with the fact that Uranus was cheating on his mom. So, and Gaia eventually asked Saturn to go and kill his own father. But what happened was that Saturn could not do that. So Saturn tasked his own father to actually look after a kind of a project. So Saturn kind of carries a little bit of a forgiveness in the picture. But also, the other mythology story related to Uranus is that that's kind of like a Promethean energy, which is very much about, about me being chained up to a rock and all these crows are eating my liver, and but my liver kind of regenerates every single night. And it happened because we wanted to provide fire to the humankind. And that's the Uranian energy. It's about fighting for humanity. It's fighting for people's freedom in a sense that you can be who the heck you want to be. And how you are going to be doing that? Do you have enough self-worth to be who you want to be? Or do you still depend on other people? And Mars comes there to actually promote that you've got the right to be gay, black, yellow, blind, handicapped, whatever kind of default we've got in the settings, but we have got the right to express our unique opinions about something. Uranus is a communicational planet, okay? Because it's the higher octave of Mercury. So it really connects how I'm going to be connecting to higher ideals. Yes, so we should be expecting some volcano eruptions. Mars represents weapon. So I can actually imagine that there is going to be kind of like gun control legislation coming around, who can have guns at home and who cannot. But I also can imagine that people are going to be feeling very unsafe at home, and they want to be having a gun at home. And it can be because Uranus, which actually represents criminals. Mars is also kind of like a criminality, but also it represents police force. It could really talk about how the police is trying to fight off crimes. And Uranus is not the petty crimes. Okay, the petty crimes are actually Mercury. Uranus, these masterminded crimes, how to break into a bank. We should be expecting stories like that coming up, that one of the major banks is, going to be cyber attacked. And I don't know, they're going to steal a certain amount of money from their account. Or actually, we're going to hear that people with gun, Mars, are going to be walking into banks, Taurus, to commit a crime there. And one of the problems, unfortunately, with this constellation, because North Node makes it all greedy, I kind of believe that this would be ending kind of like with death of people as well. And this could lead to further issues where, I don't know, maybe, a wrong person is going to die, and then we're going to have protests about it. We're going to be blaming the police. These type of things are very possible around it. But of course, also, it could indicate very busy hospitals. And typically, because think about it, we've got a volcano eruption, people are going to get burned, they're going to have cuts, bruises, inflammations. So they're going to have to go and get treated in the hospital. And we do know that currently the hospitals are not well equipped, let's put it that way. Uranus and Mars together can really talk about heat strokes as well. So unfortunately, one of the best advice I can give you this summer in certain parts, of course, to be extremely careful to go on the sun and just dehydrate yourself. I mean, sorry, hydrate yourself as much as possible, because we should be expecting a very hot July or August overall. And we do know that there is a climate change going on and so forth. Most probably there is going to be some technological advancements, to kind of make rains and so forth, but maybe that's going to be in the next 15 years. Now, Taurus, we mentioned a couple of keywords for it, which is banks, investment, food, earth, currencies, and also to a certain extent, it talks about construction works also. What am I expecting? I'm expecting possibly bankruptcies happening of probably bigger companies also. They kind of gonna close the doors. Taurus is something to do with stock market and financial systems. So most probably I'm expecting market crash. Let's see how cryptocurrency, Bitcoin plays out. I did want to speak about Bitcoin today, but I was, I think it's a heavy topic and not one of my favorite topics, because I'm going to be very honest, in 2020, I think, or 19, when I said that the cryptocurrency would get collapsed in this year, May, I got emails from people threatening me how uneducated I am and I should be jumping up of a cliff and all these type of things. So I don't like speaking about Bitcoin, to be frank, because people become very offensive about it. Was I right? I was right, by the way. And it's not about being big-headed, but anyway. So it can really talk about financial losses, that people unfortunately are going to be very poor, or people are going to have to watch out for their money, how much money we spend. Of course, North Node is about increases. So it really talks about price increases. Uranus actually rules electricity. So we should be expecting that electricity is even going to be more expensive than now. I do know that in the last couple of years, in some European countries, the prices of the electricity went up 4 times more than it was kind of like 2 years ago. I think we should be expecting further increases there. But also, Taurus does rule over currencies. The worst case scenario in the next 15 years is that certain currencies will actually disappear. The worst case scenario is that certain countries are going to be in debt, and unfortunately they're going to have to sell some parts of their countries just to be able to sustain some part of other countries. And that's some part of their own countries. This actually happened back in 2011. Would be interesting to see if there was any type of especially Taurian or Cancerian elements going on, but it happened with Greece. They had to be selling some of their islands. Otherwise, they would have got busted, basically. It's very possible that Uranus is actually ruling electricity, and Mars, which is about explosion, but also cutting things away. It's kind of like you are going to the to the electric board, and then you cut the wires, type of things. So it can actually talk about, and then what is Taurus? It's about sources. So this could really talk about power source outage. So I'm expecting some electricity issues coming up. I know we do have got now all the, oil and petrol related issues. I think the next 15 years is going to be talking about some type of blackout, basically. Uh, yeah. Okay. Very possible that, and we do need to be very careful with all these scams, because I think there is going to be possibly more hacking going on when it comes to your internet system. And do I recommend keeping our bank card stuff saved on our laptops and so forth? Just to be on the safe side, we're going to have to kind of create a better protection system for our computers and phones and all those type of things, because these very intelligent Uranus hackers will be coming. And I can imagine that they're just going to walk by and, they're going to be able to read everything, whatever we have got in our in our pockets. I know these are very gloomy, interpretations, but better to be ready for the worst than, experiencing something negative. But some of the positive ones, Uranus is something to do with awakening. And Taurus is about food. So it's kind of like coming up with some technological advancements of how to create, for instance, food. Now, we do know that in our world at the moment, we do have got issues with possibly flour because of the Ukraine and the Russian war. So we might need to be coming up with alternatives of how we can replace that. And you know what? Taurus talks about livestock and animals and, all those type of things which we can eat actually. So probably we are going to be seeing some advancements in those. I've been saying it for a few years to my clients and to my YouTube viewers as well, that we should be having our own garden, we should be raising our chickens and so forth, because that's going to be kind of like a fortune. That's going to be something we can make money out of, as well as it's going to mean a lot more to us. And I think this Uranus-Mars North-Node conjunction wants you to look at your value system. What do you value the most? And that, I think that's going to be changing quite a lot in the next 15 years. You might say that, you know what, I'm not valuing money as much as I used to before, because for me, it's going to be more important not to eat, I don't know, genetically modified meat, for instance. And I want to go back to nature and I want to eat healthier. And I want to make sure that my kids are also, well fed with quality things. And I find it interesting that Saturn will be squaring this point, which kind of indicates that quality controllers are going to be there also somehow, kind of try to kind of regulate this. But also, one of the other topic which I wanted to talk about, especially because North Node is in the picture, and that's waste. So I think this Uranus-Mars North Node conjunction wants us to look at how much waste we create on the Earth, because Taurus represents the Earth. So hopefully that Uranus brings some type of innovative ways of, getting rid of from waste. But hopefully it's not necessarily about burning waste, because Mars can kind of represent that, because I don't think it's very good for the air. But anyway, I'm not that smart in these type of things, but hopefully we're going to be seeing a lot more movements around this. And I'm really hoping that we're going to see more and more people to be conscious about wanting to save the Earth somehow, so that your grandchildren can have a better future. And it could really talk about new security systems to come around, which is kind of going to protect us. It could really talk about some rapid technological innovations, going down on the memory lane a little bit. One of the last conjunctions when we had Uranus and the Mars meeting, when Uranus and North Node met, was in 2007. And that's when actually iPhone, Android phones, YouTube, and these bigger social media and phone companies kind of appeared. Obviously, iPhone was a huge technological breakthrough. So we should be expecting something similar anyway, but also it could show that because we're coming to an end of a cycle, that we're gonna be having issues with YouTube. Maybe, well, let me tell you what I read recently. That Facebook is actually threatening Europe to kind of leave Europe and not providing any type of service. And that is the reason why, because Europe said to Facebook that we don't want you to be sending notifications to US about what our people actually doing, what they Google, what they do on phones and all those type of things. And so there is this debate going on. And then Facebook reaction was, okay, then you know what, we're going to leave Europe if you don't allow us, which is obviously going to be a huge cut for the businesses. And can you see the coloration here? Uranus, which is the higher message. It's a collectiveness. It's belonging to a group ideology. But also it represents groups, kind of like your friends, but kind of like these universal friends, if you like it. And Mars, we are fighting about it. And a Taurus, which actually talks about data protection. So, of course, data is something to do with Gemini, but the Taurian element is more about the data protection in a sense that, you know, you've got your private things which you want to be hiding, and that's okay to have those. So I kind of feel like that maybe this, what I read in the article about Facebook walking out of Europe or something like that, I can imagine such thing happening, especially when Saturn will be squaring Uranus. Let's see how it happens. But think about what happened the very last time when Saturn and Uranus were squaring each other. Things happened like Donald Trump got banned from Instagram or whatever it was, you know, so you could see that these type of things were already or are already in the motion. And it's very possible that something similar is going to be happening again. Also, I'm really hoping that new kind of social media platforms are going to be appearing, obviously, to kind of replace those. I'm going to come on back onto those. Now, banking system. I mean, Taurus is banking system, so it's about money. I think, I know it's going to sound very weird, but I think money will be disappearing in the next 15 years. I mean, the notes, okay? I think they're going to start very soon with coins. I think it might be happening in the next 2 to 4 years. We're gonna start not seeing coins, and then eventually it's gonna be notes. Okay, so money will become digital, and you know, is it gonna be good for us? Not necessarily. Why? Because they're gonna be able to check out, you know, they're going to be able to text you immediately. There is not going to be more text cheating. And, you know, I'm sure they're going to come up with some ways to kind of work it around. Don't worry about it. But, you know, the whole idea about it would be so that they can control our own money. So I'm expecting the money to be digital very soon, actually, very soon. Will people like that? Well, most probably not. So I can imagine some, some kind of demonstration about it. Because it's Taurus, it's going to be a very slow process, though. Even though that Uranus will be leaving the sign of Taurus in 2026, but remember, this is a 15-year cycle now. So probably things are going to be speeding up once Uranus goes into the sign of Gemini. And that's when we're going to start things kind of coming together. And of course, Uranus will be spending there 7 years. I also believe that there's going to be huge technological advancements about how surgeries are actually completed. Now, I think I did mention this in one of my other videos as a prediction, but probably when Jupiter went into the sign of Aries. But I do know that in 2016, they started experimenting with robots working in McDonald's and actually robots making surgeries in hospitals. We should be expecting something like that. Mars is actually something to do with surgeries, cuts and wounds and emergencies and ENAs and so forth. So we should see some actually busier departments there, as well as most probably some robots will be actually doing the work. And most probably because the workforce, which can be actually Taurian again, that's the foundation of any type of organization, is going to be struggling. So something to do with employment and and how much money we get for our work. This could be also a topic coming up in the near future. Now, Uranus is something to do with social trends and patterns. So it's probably really talking about a new trend which is going to be coming up. Let's say, I don't know, maybe it's going to be a food truck or, something innovative. I don't know what it's going to be, but something which is, we haven't seen before. So just, maybe new raw resources. Maybe we're going to be eating ants, a silly example, I know, but God knows, maybe we're going to be making something out of certain type of bugs or stuff like that. Uranus, which always wants us to open up our eyes. It's kind of like somehow your third eye, if you like it. It wants to push you towards something new. But also because Uranus represents kind of like other people, your friends, the society. So it's also how you show up to others. So that's the ruler of a humanitarian sign. So of course, on a collective level, we are going to be affected quite significantly. Another upsetting thing which I wanted to mention here is something to do with land and rights. Taurus rules lands, and Uranus is something to do with humanitarian rights. So it really could talk about that the legislation around who owns a land is going to change quite significantly. And most probably, this is going to be between countries. So what I'm kind of expecting here to see is that, I don't know, certain countries are going to be claiming that, no, this is my territory. It used to be my territory. Give it back to me or I'm going to fight for it. And unfortunately, I'm very gloomy about this constellation, as I said, but I think there is going to be a war. Yeah, I'm going to say out loud, I think there is going to be a war. And I think it's going to be around resources and lands. And because, I don't know, there is gas in that little corner, and I want to get that corner because that used to be mine. And one of the reasons why I kind of believe that, because North Node is something to do with greediness. Yes, it does talk about, all the goodies as well, that we step in on a karmic road. Tell me which karma is easy. None of the karmic matters are easy, especially in the sign of Taurus, which is actually reluctant to step onto a karmic journey, because I'm very comfortable the way things are going at the moment, and we should not be comfortable. So we're going to have to pay attention to anything to do with land. Hopefully it's not, but I can also imagine that, like countries are going to be saying that, what, no one has got the right to own a land. Maybe you can own a house, but you cannot own a forest, for instance. These type of things I'm actually talking about. Something similar, which is happening, I think, in Thailand, maybe, or in some Asian countries. You cannot own a land there. Uranus is a planet which wants to do something which hasn't been tested before. So it's, again, we're going to see something which is going to be very shocking to people, and probably we're not going to like it at the beginning. And of course, Mars being there, which represents wars, Taurus actually represents anything to do with gas. So I can imagine fight because of gas, oil related matters. Most probably, gas prices will go further up. We can also expect record heat waves, electric fires somewhere, or there is going to be some emergency or even economic emergency situation, or maybe some countries are going to be declaring an emergency state thing. I don't know how it's called exactly. Maybe because of the weather, maybe because of, I don't know, not having certain type of food, but some type of emergency situations. State of emergency, that's the word I was looking for. Now, in order for us to kind of understand this Uranus a little bit more, because Uranus is the biggest gun here, we should remember what happened with Uranus, right? So Uranus went into the sign of Taurus in 2018, 15th of May. Then it retrograded back into Aries, 6th of November, 2018. Then it went back into Taurus, 6th of March, 2019. And then it's staying there till about 2026, April 26. But in the meantime, it will shift into Gemini on 7th of July 2025, and then in November it's going to go back into Taurus again for a short period of time. So I want you to think about what was going on a personal level, of course, in your life in 2018 and maybe 2019, beginning of 2019, because that's actually very possible that it's going to kind of happen something similar. Maybe you just had a divine idea or insight into something, and Mars now speeds things up for you. I think we are going to get forced, Mars, to rethink our values, and that's the Taurus, and Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury. So it's something to do with thinking also, so to connect with your higher mind so that you can grow. And that's the grow part, is the North Node element, so that we can start moving into a different direction. And you're going to have to start thinking about that. And I kind of believe that if you get stuck with your current belief system, that's going to bite you in the ass, basically. So it's time to examine your values. It's time to become more self-sufficient. It's time to find new ways of making money. It's time to look at our relationships to money, how important it has become. And guys, don't get me wrong, we need money. So I'm not talking about, forgetting about money. But we're going to have to kind of, I want to see one day that, we're going to, I don't know, exchange. You give me potato and then I give you tomato. So I want to see that type of, more and more, because we're going to realize that, yeah, anyway. And it's also really talking about discovering your talents, something which you might have been dreaming about or you haven't thought about, but you know what, I can actually do something about it. Remember that Taurus is about building something, and Saturn will be squaring that point. So, and Saturn wants to build something which is actually long lasting. So you should not be resisting the change, because Uranus will explode if you do so. And yeah, it's going to be very challenging. So you need awakening, you need a spiritual awakening. And that's a positive manifestation, by the way, of that Uranus and North Node, that I am going through a spiritual awakening, right? North Node is said to be quite spiritual. Uranus is about astrology and stuff like that. Divinity, if you like it. And I read it recently on Facebook. Someone commented that, the most trustful people nowadays are the astrologers, because they are kind of saying what they see. And I kind of really like that sentence, because I think, even if we make mistakes, but we try to get you prepared for all the things what is happening in the world. So are you ready for some awakening? Are you ready to kind of move beyond your limited belief systems? And that's going to be the Saturn and the Uranus square happening on that 18 degree also. Uranus wants to shatter your foundation, and it wants you to figure out how much you are ready to pay to get your freedom back. And what are you willing to do about that? And I think these are kind of like the maybe a little bit far-fetched meanings of this conjunction, but I think it's worth thinking about it. One thing which actually came to my mind, that was time has come to lip sync for your life. And that's something RuPaul says quite a lot. And this conjunction really reminds me of that. There is an important beginning in front of us. And if you don't lip sync for that, the opportunity is going to go, and then you can go home. So, you need to be looking at your own life. What is happening there? What needs changing? And because we're going to have to take action about it. Okay. Let's just go a little bit further. Before actually we do that, can we just take a few minutes break? Because I need to take a loo break. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Sorry about that. I'm back. So taking it a little bit further, one of the reasons why I think land, property, and food will be definitely a huge topic is because when we look at the dispositor of this conjunction, the triple conjunction, that's actually Venus. And Venus is in the sign of Cancer. And I did mention at the beginning of the lecture that we do have got two signs which are related to food matters, and that's Cancer and Taurus. But Cancer, apart from food, it does talk about housing, family heritage, security, emotional foundation, and housing and benefits also. So a couple of other ideas which I had was that unfortunately, we can imagine some type of changes around housing benefits. Can we actually give housing benefit? Can we not give housing benefits to people? So yeah, let's see how that happens, but I can imagine some type of restrictions around that, especially the fact that Saturn will be squaring that point also. Or maybe just they're going to come up with a new system. Most probably, I mean, as I said, I'm going to be expecting some debt crisis. And one of the reasons why I'm expecting that, because looking at this Uranus North Node conjunction, which exactly happens on 18 degree 41 minutes, that's actually falling on Scorpio dwads. And that is something to do with that. Now, Mars is still on Libra dwad though. Oh, sorry, no, that's impossible. That's also on Scorpio dwad, sorry. I made a mistake there on the slide. So both of them are on Scorpio dwads. So these are talking about debts. So the banking system is definitely changing. And the fact that it's Taurus and Scorpio is something to do with sharing. So how much we are sharing with others. I think there's going to be a more digital economy coming around. Probably less and less shops are going to be taking cash. And it's going to be more about bank card. Oh, just a quick story. I would need to check, but I do know some countries in Europe, sometimes about 15 years ago, they introduced a cash register system where they immediately taxed the shops. So if I go there and then I buy a laptop and then I spend there, I don't know, £2,000, then the shop immediately has to pay the tax because they're going to deduct it immediately. And some things I can imagine it's going to be spreading significantly so that the governments can take the money in as quickly as possible. And of course, if we start thinking about cash, less cash indicates less freedom, right? Because we want to kind of justify the tax accordingly. Unfortunately. But hopefully, I'm a kind of hopeful that we're going to see a lot more technological advancements to kind of maintain our body, to kind of cut back on the, let's say, the weight issues of people in a sense, new technology to help sustainability, and hopefully the bestest manifestation of this conjunction would be to come up with ways to kind of fix the economic situations. Also, this could, because Taurus is something to do with the soil, it's something to do with the earth. So this would really talk about some discoveries which are going to be, you know, kind of like a different richness in the soil. So, you know, maybe, I don't know, gold was you know, something. Maybe there is going to be, I don't know, a piece of rock, which is going to cost a lot of money. You know, I don't know what that is, but something like that. Other very negative things are around microchips. Well, it's negative or positive, you cannot decide that. But microchips to kind of enhance biological functions of the body. I think they're going to be able to cheat death. it's not just the Uranus and the North Node Mars conjunction, which actually tells me that. However, Mars kind of is something to do with death, right? Because that's the ruler of Scorpio. But also, there is another major planetary cycle, which is going to be coming up in 26 and 27. And that's going to be the Uranus-Pluto trine. And then we're going to have a Uranus and the Neptune sextile. The reason why I looked at those, because I was preparing the material for my classes on Sundays, which are all about the planetary aspects. And I kind of wanted to foresee what that means, but I kind of feel like we're going to somehow cheat death. So I think it talks about prolonging the life of people, and I think it's going to be some technological crap. Do I agree with that? Personally, I don't, but it's just my humble opinion, really. Now, let's have a look at a little bit the history. We've been speaking for a while. This is something Maurice Fernandez discovered, and we are very grateful to him. I mean, this is not the one, sorry. But at the next slide, here I put down all the North Node and the Uranus conjunctions for you. So you can see it happens kind of every 15 years. And on the side, you're going to be seeing the South Node and the Uranus conjunctions. And we're going to have to start looking at some trends here, because you will be able to find some trends. So look at, for instance, 1908, January 25th, we had a South Node and Uranus conjunction happening on 15 degrees of Capricorn. Look at what happened in 1991, November 12, it happened on 11 degrees of Capricorn. Let's just have a look at the difference between those two. 91 minus 8, that's approximately about 83 years. Now, who can type into the chat box for me, what is the cycle of Uranus? How often does Uranus, how long does it take for Uranus to go around the zodiacal circle? If someone can pop it into the chat box, that would be lovely. Brilliant, 84 years, good. So yeah, this is something, sorry, Maurice Fernandez spotted. There is one more slide I want to kind of show there. Let's just have a look at the 23. It was on 17 degree Pisces. 2007, it's on 18 degree Pisces. What's the difference there again? Approximately about 83, 84 years. So what does it tell me? At every 83, 84 years, we have a conjunction of the North Node and the Uranus, where South Node and the Uranus met 83, 4 years before. So this is actually, and we're going to have to start thinking about what the South Node and the North Node are. And then we can say that, okay, South Node is something to do with emptying out, North Node is about growing. Or we can say that with South Node, we leave something behind, and then with the North Node, we start something new. So we can talk about them more and more, but the whole idea about this, that because we're going to have it on 18 degree of Taurus, the very last time we had a South Node and Uranus conjunction there was 1939, January 23rd. And that happened on 13 degree of Taurus. So basically, if we go back to look at what was going on in 1939, then we can kind of start thinking about a couple of things. 38, 39, that was the end of the Great Depression, which actually started in the 30s. But then we had the World War II started kind of immediately. So this is one of the reasons why I'm not so optimistic about this conjunction. because when I actually kind of saw that, you know, I got a little bit scared, to be frank. Also, what I kind of started looking at is that each cycle happens approximately about 32 to 35 degrees away. So, so if I look at the North Node and the Uranus conjunction, it's an 11 degree of Aquarius. Then we've got, sorry, not 35, 30, sorry, I wanted to write 62 to 65 degree. Okay, I'm gonna have to change that. 62 to 65 degree. So 11 degree Aquarius, then we have got it on 13 degree of Aries, which is 2 signs away, right? Then we've got Gemini, which is 2 signs away. And then we've got Leo, which is 2 signs away. So mostly it happens usually about, let's say, 60 to 70 degree apart, which is kind of a sextile aspect. So each of these North Node and Uranus cycle, I think it would be talking about an advancement surely, because it's sextile, right? So it's something great plays out of it. But as I said, the breakdown of Uranus would be that first it breaks down, then after we're going to break away from something, and then eventually we're going to have the breakthroughs. So it does take a little bit of a time. Another thing which we want to be spotting, Uranus and the nodes, here are the dates when they were in the sign of Taurus, when they happened. Either North Node or the South Node conjunction. And what you see here is that it always happens between 13 to 18 degree. Always. So this time around, we have got it on 18 degree. Previously, it was on 13, but mostly it's always 13 and 18 degree where this conjunction happens. So maybe we can look at it from a numerological point of view, as well as from a dwad point of view. So if I look at 13 degree of Taurus, which is actually the second decan, right? So the first 2.5 degree would be Virgo, and the next 2.5 degree would be Libra. But then when I look at the 18 degree, which is actually a Scorpionic dwad, so it really talks about, in my opinion, that we are meant to be connecting with others. We are actually meant to be creating peace instead of kind of creating some wars. And it would be interesting to see when we had all these 13 degrees, was there any peace or was there any war? I did not look those up though. So, but it's something you might want to be doing as a homework. Because for me, this 18 degree is always a little bit more war related. Or actually, it could also talk about things like that, you know, we are meant to be sharing things up, but these are never easy anyway. So always between 13 to 18 degrees. So I want you to think about these degrees as well, because that might be quite important. Uranus, which represents skyscrapers, leaving the Earth, planes, and aviation. So most probably we should be seeing some astrological advancements, some astronomical advancements. What Uranus does is that it tends to, you know, be the emotionally detached planet. One of the reasons why Uranus is emotionally detached because it wants to see things clearly. So, and it's the planet of sky. So probably we're going to be invading the sky quite a lot. And probably we're going to be hearing about UFOs quite a lot also. So let's see how that plays out. But I think it's going to be quite a big topic. Now, so we looked at the 38 and 39 period. We also had Uranus North Node in 61. That was the first man in space. We had one in 54. That was the birth of Laika. That was the first dog, which actually managed to land on the moon. Then we had the 69, which was Apollo landing on the moon. So we can see that somehow this Uranus North Node is always connecting to the sky. So we should be seeing the discoveries of new planets, or a massive change in astrology. Something which is going to get discovered, or we're going to change our conceptions. We're going to come up with some new timing techniques or whatever it is, but there is going to be some massive breakthroughs. Maybe there is going to be a program which is going to do a brilliant predictions, and you know, our job is going to be at danger or something like that. So some very major softwares I can imagine, which are going to be doing some, you know, Uranus is something to do with, yes, someone is just mentioning now, artificial intelligence, right? So probably something great is going to come up, which is going to be spotting these patterns a lot quicker than we do. Because, and to be frank, I would be happy if there was something like that, because you can spend days on this to go back and look at the history and, you know, look at all these kind of planetary stuff. It's too complicated. That's why we don't tend to do it so often, because it's just too much. Okay, we spoke about forest fires. I think I kind of mentioned that. We spoke about animal welfare and probably protesting against animal kind of how's it called, experiments and so forth. We spoke about robots. We spoke about criminal activities, cost of import export. We mentioned that. Genetically modified food, we've mentioned that. Price increase, we mentioned that. Oh, Mars, as in sport activities. And both planets really relate to speed. Probably there is going to be plenty of records broken when it comes to, I don't know, car racing, or as I said, speed of the airplanes and so forth. I think there is going to be a lot more advanced weapons. I can, you know, it might sound silly, but I can imagine robots going into wars and robots are going to be fighting. Something like that, I can really imagine. I can also imagine that there's going to be a huge revolution in the sex industry, and that's Mars. Maybe we do know what's happening nowadays about abortion, right? So unfortunately, that might end up as a riot sometimes in the next 6 months. That's a possibility. But also maybe, you know, new ways of contraception, new ways of protection, new ways of delivering babies. All these type of things can also happen. Well, we're not going to speak about Bitcoin today. I might do a separate lecture about that, but not today. Okay, so do we have any questions at all? Something like drone-like, yeah, I can kind of imagine. You know, Uranus is more about the airplane, so I don't think it would be talking about heavy roads and, you know, driving and all those type of things. However, Uranus would be ruling the electric car. So that's a possibility that a kind of like a new model is coming out, and that's going to be so fabulous in a sense. But overall, you know, Mercury rules cars. Oh, you know, it might be the flying cars. I kind of mentioned that also, I think, with in another lecture I hold, but I think it was also Uranus and Mars related anyway. But you know, it's very possible that we're going to have the flying car coming around because the roads are going to be so blocked up. There is not going to be other option but just to kind of fly in the air. Yeah, so do we have any questions or any ideas? If you do so, then maybe this is a chance now when you can unmute yourself and then we can discuss that. No one has got questions? Or no one has got any ideas? Great. So the next part is let's break it down to the 12 signs, one by one. So what I recommend is that mainly I prepared it for your ascendant, which is a overall approach to you, but you might want to be looking at your sun or moon sign as well. But you should remember that sun is something to do with the final destination of your life, and moon is something to do with your emotional well-being as well as your family. So if you are more curious about how it plays out in your vocation, for instance, or in regards to your life journey, you might want to look at your sun sign and kind of counting how far away this conjunction is going to be happening from your sun sign. So for instance, my sun is in the sign of Aquarius. And this conjunction happens from the sun's point of view in my fourth house. Okay, so I actually would be listening to the one which is actually happening in the fourth house. And then when we go down there, that would be the Aquarius. Okay, so that's kind of important. But if you have got the sun, or let's say the moon in the sign of Sagittarius, then it kind of indicates that it's going to be happening in the sixth sign from Sagittarius. So you might want to be looking at, okay, which is actually ruling the sixth house. And that's going to be, of course, the Sagittarius. Okay, so this is something you can be doing, and that would be talking about, okay, what is going to be happening to me emotionally in the next 15 years, or to my family, or to properties, or all those type of things, whatever the moon actually can represent. Okay, but mainly we're going to be looking at this from a ascendant point of view. Oh, one more thing which I wanted to mention here. People are going to be asking me, oh, can you put a time stamp on it? No, I can't. If someone is nice to do that, then please do so. Not obligatory, but unfortunately, I don't have time to listen to my ugly voice and then, you know, time these down. I don't do that. So please refrain from those comments because I know they are going to be coming. So let's have a look at Aries rising sign. So for an Aries rising sign, it's going to be happening in your second house. Saturn will be squaring from the 11th. Mars rules your first and the 8th house. And of course, the 18 degrees actually happening on Libra. I put down Libra. Hold on, let me just calculate it quickly. So Virgo, Libra, Scorpio. So we are on a Scorpio one there. Sorry. So I kind of have to change that. Okay. So we need that information to kind of have an idea of what we should be expecting. So firstly, it happens in your second house. So it's going to be affecting your financials the most. Mars kind of represents the head. So one of the things is that you're going to have to get out of your head here, and you're going to have to start making a plan for the future. And that's Uranus. You're going to have to start thinking about how on earth I'm going to make a little bit more money. Yes, some of you might be actually receiving some extreme amount of money out of the blue, or maybe not extreme, but some type of money out of the blue, which you were not counting with. And some of you will definitely be spending money and something which you did not really count with. So a bigger expenditure or a bigger income, which is coming to your way. Now, of course, Mars ruling the 8th house here also. So that does talk about maybe my financials are going to be increasing because I'm going to be receiving inheritance, or I'm going to get a tax rebate, or I'm just investing money into something, and then that's going to be blowing up big time, and then the money is coming. Or I've invested a bigger amount of money into something, and I'm going to have huge losses. So be cool-headed, okay? That's the problem with Uranus and Mars. It tends to be losing its head. Now, I did put down a generic stuff in regards to what happens with Uranus and the Mars in the natal chart. So some ideas. People tend to be living on edges. They are impatient. They are motivators and all so forth. If you want these slides, of course, I can send them over, but go through those generic interpretations, because especially those who have got this type of aspect, let's say the Uranus and the Mars, or Uranus and North Node, somehow they connect in their chart, those are going to be feeling this conjunction quite heavily though, okay? Because it's a 15-year cycle, even if you don't have aspect between them two, but you do have got Uranus and the North Node conjunction, for instance, somewhere. I don't know, maybe in Sagittarius. You don't have an aspect there, but you're definitely going to be feeling this transit quite a lot, okay? So something to do with your earnings will be changing significantly. But one of the things is that, you know, if you are in your comfort zone, I did mention that before, expect some losses. But if you are innovative and you're going to start planting the seeds, because you've got a sudden download of information, how to make ends meet, how to make more money, you should be expecting some success. Maybe not immediately, it's going to be building up slowly, but you're going to have to shoot towards the stars. Shooting as in Mars, and the stars are going to be Uranus. Do so. Maybe you want to be making money by selling electronic items. Maybe actually you're going to see that your partner is actually spending a lot more money and you are not necessarily happy about that. And then it can bring some type of arguments. We're going to have to be prepared also. Maybe you want to be actually going for a mortgage or a loan to purchase something very valuable for yourself. You're going to have to think about, do I have got enough money for that? Maybe because Uranus is about inventions. So maybe you want to be inventing something, which is actually going to make things a lot more practical in your life. Maybe you want to be starting a new workout regime. Maybe you want to be cutting back on certain type of sugar or some type of obsessions you want to be giving up on. Mars rules the 8th house. So some type of obsession. Maybe I don't need coffee, I don't need chocolate, all these type of things. Unfortunately, because the first house is something to do with the body and Mars rules the body, this also can indicate that you might want to be having a plastic surgery, or you might be having an operation and you're going to have to pay for the operation. By the way, also, this Uranus-Mars North Node could really talk about insurance matters as well, whether some of your operations are covered by insurance or not. And it's not just for Aries, but it's for everyone. And that might be also changing quite significantly. So that might be something also to be mindful about. And then maybe Aries is about, do I want to be opening up a, you know, kind of like a saving account and I want to be putting money away, or do I want to be actually, I don't know, paying a private pension, or all these type of things. Something around saving and security and how to make more money. This is going to be very important for you, most probably in the next 1 year, possibly in the next 15 years. Next one, Taurus. So Taurus, of course, it happens in your own sign. So it's going to be very important for you, especially if your rising sign is somewhere between 17 to 19 degrees. So it happens in your first house. Mars rules the 12th and the 7th house here. So we're going to have to actually consider that. It's still somewhere on the border of Libra and Scorpio Dwad. It does bring in both of them, but actually it's Libra Dwad. I just calculated in my head at the same time. So, you know, first house, we want to be getting out of our comfort zone, surely. We want to have that fire in our ass to start something new. Whenever the rising sign gets triggered, it really is talking about starting something fresh. And sometimes we might be forced to start fresh. Maybe Mars ruling your 10th, or sorry, Saturn square happens from the 10th house, can indicate that all of a sudden I'm going to lose my job. And I'm going to have to find ways of actually, you know, making money. Maybe all of a sudden I'm gonna get married or I'm going to get divorced. But the relationship is really affected here, of course. Maybe it's a sudden desire to change my body somehow. I want to lose weight. I want to put on weight. Or I just look into the mirror and then I see myself, well, then I don't like it anymore. Let's just transform this body somehow. The transformation fact does come from that Scorpionic South node, which we also should be looking at, of course. It could be about that, you know what, I don't need to kind of impress anyone's, because Uranus is something to do with friends, right? Group of people, and somehow social media also. So it can really talk about it. You know what? I don't need to impress anyone on social media. You take me the way I am, or I don't really care about you. Mars rules here the 12th house. So it could really talk about, again, you know, what am I obsessed with? What do I need to release? What are those subconscious fears which are holding me back to start fresh, to start something pioneering? If you are single, this could actually talk about meeting someone. If you are having issues in your partnership, this actually could talk about separation also. Because it happens in your first house, which is about kind of getting in touch with your body and with yourself as well. You might want to be a little bit more lonely. Also, Mars rules your 12. I want to be contemplating on life a little bit. I want to be getting in touch with my spiritual self. Sorry. Or it could just indicate that, you know what, my sexual appetite is going to be growing, because Taurus is about self-worth, and I want to kind of look at like a sexy guy or a sexy woman. And then I'm willing to work on it. And that's why I'm going to go for a surgery, or I'm going to want to look more attractive. I'm going to be changing my wardrobes, and I'm going to be a lot more eccentric. Uranus is the planet of eccentricity. So maybe you're going to be mixing colors you haven't done before. Maybe you are not Jennifer Lopez. I can't remember her name. Jennifer Aniston, who have been wearing the same hairstyle for, I don't know, 155 years. And maybe she's going to say, you know what, if she has a Taurus rising sign, I'm going to change my hairstyle. You know, I've been having the same one for a very long time. So change that so that you feel better in your own skin. And then you kind of give yourself the chance to meet someone else. If you have got it in the sign, if you have got a Gemini rising sign, then it's going to be happening in your 12th house. So of course, Mars rules the 6th and the 11th house. Now, let me just mention something here, because you might be wondering, why am I not putting down Uranus as a rulership? Because I don't believe that Uranus rules a sign, okay? I think it's a collective planet. So I don't think it should be assigned with a house, but it's up to you. If you look at Uranus as the co-ruler of Aquarius, then surely you might want to be actually somehow combining those. And then in that case, it would be the 9th house. But I think what happens here is that obviously we've got all these Caden houses getting activated. It might be a little bit of a challenging time for Gemini, because the Caden houses are very much about falling from power. So this could, on one hand, definitely talk about that, you know what, I'm running out of money. And in what ways I'm going to be actually kind of replacing that missing money here, okay? So it could talk about that I want to be having a, you know, I want to get a pay rise, for instance. And then they say, guys, we don't give pay rise. We don't give bonuses this year because we just cannot afford it. And then maybe a Gemini rising sign is going to get pissed off about it. And then all of a sudden, Mars ruling the 6th and the 11th house. So the 6th house is something to do with the work environment. The 11th house is something to do with pay rise or long-term goals. Then all of a sudden, okay, hold on, I don't want to do this anymore, then I look for another job. So that's a possibility for Gemini rising sign. But also it can indicate that we're going to be fighting for, I don't know, a position, a new position which was never there before. And then therefore there is going to be a little bit of a tension between the colleagues because everyone wants to be in that position. But also this could really talk about, because it's a 12th house. So it could talk about, I want to get into a spiritual business, or maybe I'm going to be working on a project in the background, which is going to hopefully change your life in the next 15 years quite a lot. So kind of like working a little bit on a creative project. The 12th house energy is very much about pharmaceutical matters or film industry or working behind the scenes on a project or fresh ideas. I kind of look at the 12th house as the spiritual knowledge, something which we know in our guts. So that Uranus Mars wants to stir up your guts a little bit so that more and more idea comes out. And by the way, it could really talk about that to have the body, get all the crap out of your system on a physical level as well. Maybe I'm going to go for a Ayurvedic retreat. Maybe I'm going to, whatever ways you've got to kind of cleanse the body. But maybe you want to be actually kind of give yourself the chance to, rejuvenate your body, if you like it. 12th house is actually so much to do with pregnancy. So it's very possible that I have got a desire to get pregnant, or I recently gave birth to a child, and that Uranus Mars will be talking about the post kind of dramatic, kind of depression type of thing, what happens after pregnancy. So how are you going to be connecting with your friends? How are you going to be making some time for yourself? That would be actually something. So because sometimes 12th house is about feeling isolated. 12th house, vision board. Where do I want to be? You, Gemini, must create one. Start creating it now so that you can plant the seeds around the 22nd of July when it kind of starts getting stronger and stronger. Be ambitious about something, because this can say that, what? Oh, by the way, this conjunction also happens on a asteroid called Patienta. Its astrological number is 451. If you want to be looking at yourself, where yours is, then you need that astrological number. And as the name suggests, it's about patience. So it also clearly showing not just the Taurian element, but this patienta, that it's going to happen very, very slowly. Okay, but you're going to actually experience it eventually. Actually, it could also indicate that, you're going to have sudden flashes of kind of downloads of information because of talking to a friend of yours or doing a yoga or a retreat or these type of things, which is actually gonna set you on the right path, or a path which you kind of need to be experiencing. So it's kind of like a little bit of a spiritual awakening for you. It's also very possible for Gemini that, you just want to be cutting ties with people, because the 12th house is something to do with endings. So I want to be cutting ties with some people, and I want to be escaping from reality for a short while. And then I just want to give up on responsibilities, and I want to be chilling out. Responsibility is coming from the 6th house. Those are the daily investments, right? I'm picking up dirty socks, I'm washing up plates, I'm cooking, I'm raising children, and I don't want to do that. I just want to have a day off when I enjoy life. How you are going to do that? How are you going to get mentally stimulated? How are you going to get out of that isolation overall? And this actually some of the possible topics for you. Cancer rising sign is going to be happening in your 11th house, and Mars rules your 10th and 5th. So now I like Uranus in the 10th house. Maybe one of the reasons because I personally have Uranus in the 10th house. And one of the meaning of that is sudden success. So you, Cancer, might experience sudden success somehow, maybe on social media, maybe just you're going to be attracting more friends, maybe you're going to get a promotion you have been kind of longing for, or maybe you're going to have a business partnership coming up, and all of a sudden, you know what, I'm going to start my own business. Let me start that. And then it kind of starts extremely well. So if you have got those plans, I think have a vision, maybe share the vision with potential partners who are going to be helping you on the road, and start doing that. Because 11th house is something to do with your long terms, and then it can play out in a very great way. Yes, maybe you want to be attracting more friends, kind of like benefactors. 11th house is the kind of like the benefactors. So it's very possible that you're going to actually meet a lot more like-minded people overall. Probably you might want to be changing career also. You know, this Uranus, which is about inventions, and the 11th house is about social media. Uranus is Saturnly. So you might want to make a video. Maybe, I don't know, it can be anything silly, and then you go viral. And then you've got a platform maybe to sell something. You might want to be actually thinking about that. 11th house is a health house of a parent. So with Uranus and Mars, North Node, actually, one of the parents' health situation can turn significantly. Also, if you have got children, there could be some sudden disruptions in the marriage of your children. But also it can actually indicate that, you know what, I want to be joining some like-minded groups or unions. And maybe you want to be fighting for the rights of other people in a sense, because you kind of feel like they are suffering from injustice. So these are the possible manifestations, a few of them, for a Cancer rising. Okay, let me just have a quick water, 1 second. Leo rising sign. So Leo, for you, it's going to be happening in the 10th house, and Mars rules your 9th and the 4th. So one of the possible manifestation for Leo is relocation. And maybe you are relocating because of work, or maybe you want to be selling your home because you want to find a better job somewhere else, and then I'm going to be buying a home. Or maybe you want to be investing money into kind of real estate, and then you want to make it your own job. Maybe actually it can also indicate that you want to be studying something kind of new, which is in the long run going to kind of give you a new career field. That would be the combination of the 9th and the 10th house. And it's very much about how much is going to be serving my new career fields. It can also indicate, because Mars is really going to be testing you here, whether you are an achiever or you are a dreamer. And Leo is a fixed sign, so it's a little bit comfortable. So you definitely want to make sure that you're just not dreaming about achieving something, you're going to actually take action about it. Also, this could talk about that you're going to get a sudden promotion and it's going to be really shocking others. Or it's just a sudden awakening that I want to be kind of following my higher order. And I'm going to gain more confidence. I'm going to be more a rounded person, and I'm going to stand up for myself, and I'm going to tell the boss, you know what, I want a pay rise. I want to get a promotion. I've been here for 20 years. Or not, okay, then I'll leave you, because somewhere else they're going to appreciate me. Yes, you can have some fights with your boss, so be mindful about that. It could really bring in some tension especially with hierarchy figures or authority figures also. Unfortunately, it's also possible that you're going to have to kind of fight for the rights of your land, or maybe you have got some issues, for instance, in your second marriage or just in your marriage, and then we want to be splitting up the home environment, and we're going to have some challenges around that too. But also 10th house is in status. So in what ways do you want to boost your social status? Because that can be achieved with this. It's about shaping your reputation, how you are going to do that. Uranus is a friend, right? So it's very possible that you want to be opening a business with a friend of yours. Maybe there is a desire to be working from home overall. The idea is experiment with things. Uranus and Mars wants to take risks, but it has to be calculative risk when it comes to your profession. Is it the right time? Do I have got the confidence? And all those type of generic things, what we kind of spoke about earlier. No, 10th house is a parental house as well. So actually it would talk about that maybe mommy and daddy are having some kind of like emotional ups and downs, upheavals in the relationship, and then somehow you're going to be in the middle of that. And therefore, but also it can happen in your own marriage as well, because you are so focused on your profession that you forget about your own family. So there needs to be an element of the balance there. And it could be just a situation that, you know what, we agreed to go on a holiday, I don't know, in July or August, but because I've got so much work, you know what, honey, you go and with the kids on holiday and I have to be working. But no worries, we do that next time. And maybe there is no next time. So we're going to have to remember that with that Uranus Mars, because you might notice that someone just packed the bags and then they never come back to you. Okay. And typically with Uranus and Mars, there are no second chances. And that's a very important keyword here, because the chances are taken. They come very quickly, and sometimes you're going to have to make the decisions quite quick also. Virgo rising signs, it's going to be happening in your 9th house, and Mars rules your 8th and the 3rd. So again, this could talk about actually relocation. It also could talk about that I want to be studying something to kind of broaden my horizon. But also it could talk about that I want to start a business, for instance, which is related to export, import, even something to do with deliveries, as in 9th house rules deliveries. But also it could really talk about that, you know what, I want to boost my spiritual business overall. I want to do a little bit more research about spiritual subjects, and maybe I want to be sharing my vision eventually. Maybe I want to become an oracle. Okay, so that might be something you might want to be actually considering. 9th house is your grandchildren, so some of you can have a sudden grandchild. Uranus and Mars typically would be actually indication, especially with North Node. North Node kind of indicates alienated things, that this grandchild would be out of marriage. But it can just show that there is a miracle baby. We were not expecting that, and so forth. But it could actually talk about grandchildren coming around. But I think on a spiritual level, in what ways are you going to be changing your mindset? What are your limiting patterns? What are your scripts in your head? How are you going to liberate yourself from those? I really want you to kind of look at those. It's about, maybe I'm at a university and, you know, all of a sudden I just drop out of uni. I don't want to do it anymore. Or maybe I just realized that, you know what, I want to finish the uni and I'm going to go back and then I kind of going to study something. That's also a possibility. It could also talk about that there are things in your life which you haven't shared with anyone. And then all of a sudden you've got this kind of motivation to share that with others. because in a way, I want to be helpful towards others. I think the most important meaning of this, have a vision, work towards the vision, take action about your vision, and accomplish as much as you can, because I think it could be a success story. Just kind of mixing the 8th and the 9th house, making money out of your vision, and that could be good. Probably 9th house is connected to confidence level, so you're going to have to work on that a little bit. You're going to have to take risks, surely. But if you do so, I think it's a success story for Virgo. Libra rising sign. So it's going to be happening in your 8th house, and Mars is ruling your 2nd and the 7th. So it's a little bit of a challenging position, to be frank, for Libra. Especially because you're going to have all the eclipses happening next year also in Libra and Aries. So I kind of feel like that you are planting the seeds now, and then it's going to get really highlighted for you next year also. And whether you're going to have to leave something behind or you're going to actually achieve something, it really depends. But I think Libra, you're going to be impacted quite a lot. 8th house, as in trust issues, you're going to have to overcome. You're going to have to kind of break down all your fears to kind of fight against your inner demons. What am I afraid of? Am I afraid of mortality? Am I afraid of depending on others? Am I afraid of kind of vanishing without being noticed for something? And then after, you're going to have to start kind of walk away from all those issues. So so you take a little bit of a rest, and then you can actually kind of concentrate on a better future by transforming your power, if you like it, channeling your power into something meaningful to you. It can talk about it. I'm going to be walking away from my relationship because I want to be working on my self-worth. It could talk about that, what I noticed that I've got codependency issues. And I need to be giving a moment to my partner as well to see whether, we are on the right track or not. But also it could talk about the need to work on intimacy with your partner. It could talk about that we have been focusing on money way too much, and then we forgot about ourselves. And then we feel like that our relationship is a roller coaster. So to go back to the foundations, Mars rules the 2nd house to kind of fix things there. Yes, this is a money house also, right? So this could talk about things like, I don't know, my partner is going to lose that job, or my partner is going to get a pay rise, or my partner invested into something and then we're going to have money coming out of that, and all those type of things. This could also talk about, because Libra is always concerned about, sorry, business connections. So it could really talk about that I'm going to have all these technological advancements going on in my business so that we can attract more clients. If that's your intention, then do so, because that could actually work pretty well. Some of you might need to be fighting against addictions. What are your addictions? Typically, everyone has got addictions. When we are talking about addictions, it's not just about drugs and food and sex and all these type of things. It could be the smallest thing that I'm addicted to eat, I don't know, too much, I don't know, or crisp every morning. And then I need to walk away from that. It's not like something is wrong with crisp, by the way, or there might be, I don't know, but something which, we can easily get attached to. So what are you attached to, and what do you need to kind of release here? And that could be quite a big topic. Maybe it talks about that you are afraid of losing someone. Maybe you are afraid of the death of the relationship, that the relationship is coming to an end. Why is that? Because second house is the eighth from the seventh, which is talking about the death of the relationship, but that's more likely the process. The fourth house would be ruling the end of the relationship. And of course, it happens in your eighth house, which is also death. So you might be afraid that my partner is cheating on me and I'm trying to, and then I'm agitated and I'm always frustrated with my partner. So how are we going to overcome all these type of things? And these can be, big topics. What your psychological defenses are and how are you going to get rid of them? How are you going to kind of face them? With Mars, we always have to face the challenge. And Uranus is just going to be giving you the situations where you're going to have to face the challenge. Maybe, yes, from some negative perspective, you're going to have to watch out for accidents. Okay. This is one of the accident positions to have. There's going to be another one also for another sign. But yeah, just watch out for any accidents. That's a possibility. Okay, Scorpio. So it's going to be happening in your seventh house, and Mars rules your first and the sixth. Now, of course, it happens in the seventh. So something which I mentioned to Libra, take those with Scorpio also. But just to add a couple of things to it. Maybe it's about that you have been single for a while, just because you have got South Node going through the first house, which could, on one hand, indicate that, you know what, we're going to have to give up on something. Maybe expectations. Maybe we're going to have to give up on habits, certain choices of lifestyles, something to be given up so that I can meet suddenly with someone. So it could really talk about getting into a relationship for you. But you're going to have to learn to be healthier around relationships. Healthier in a physical way or healthier in an emotional way, because you don't want to poison the relationship with kind of like an unhealthy approach to it. So how are you going to do that? Yes, it could talk about it. You can attract more clients into your life. You can attract more friends into your life. But if you are single, do you want to attract someone new? Yes, if you are in a relationship, this would also talk about that we're gonna, sorry, we're gonna have to start thinking about how we do our daily routines. Or maybe it talks about your increased desire around freedom, and you are thinking about, you know what, this relationship doesn't work for me, and I want to get out of the relationship. You might actually think that the partner is actually having second thoughts in the relationship. You might actually become very jealous, and then you think that the partner is actually cheating on you. And unfortunately, there is a possibility for that with Uranus North Node Mars conjunction, actually. Yeah, unfortunately, there is a possibility on that. Great. Let's have a look at Sagittarius. So for Sagittarius, it happens in the sixth house, and Mars rules the 12th and the 5th. Maybe it's a little bit of a challenging position, but we can make the best out of it. I think it really talks about to get healthy. It really talks about, let's have a look at what we eat. Let's go to the gym. Let's pump that body. Let's change something in your life. 6 and the 12th house is, on one hand, it definitely talks about retirement. So some of you might be thinking about retiring. what am I gonna do every day if I'm kind of being bored? But also it talks about that, you know what, some of my projects which I'm thinking about, some of the projects I'm having is actually not working, and I should not get stuck with it. And I should be actually choosing something else instead. But again, remember, I was talking about this body and mind balance, which Taurus really talks about. So you're going to have to learn to listen to your gut feelings, as well as you're going to have to examine if you are stubborn about something. Maybe a friend is actually warning you about not doing something, but you are too stubborn about it. Maybe actually you want to be cooperating with a friend of yours, whether we're going to do a business venture together, because Mars rules the fifth house. So that does talk about business ventures. But also, this could talk about that a friend of mine is warning me about something, and I'm very stubborn and I don't listen. I'm very opinionated and I'm just going, the way I kind of imagine things. You might also feel very isolated because you've changed your habits. Maybe you moved, maybe you started at a new workplace, and then you feel very isolated, and then you might want to be crying all day, because maybe Sagittarius, which is about languages, I don't speak the language. Maybe you're gonna feel discriminated at workplace, and I just want to be breaking away from that. Maybe I just want to be starting a new job, really. This is also an accident position. That's the second one. 6 houses as in accidents. So you're going to have to be very careful on the roads, especially if you've got this road rage type of driving going on. Also, it could talk about that you want to retire, or you should be retiring from some type of thoughts, what you are having. Maybe it talks about you creating a new position for yourself at work, kind of proving that you are needed there. And unfortunately, it could talk about possible health issues also. You can break your leg, so be mindful about it. But also it could talk about anything to do with like stomach bugs, stomach burns. I think overall, this is reminding you of watching out for your health and what are you going to do to get your immune system stronger. The immune system comes from both Uranus and Mars. And I think you're going to need to do some sport, and you're going to have to change certain habits in your life. You're going to have to break away from bits and bobs, which are actually not making you happy. And that might be some of the duties and responsibilities what you have around you. I feel like Uranus and Mars could really talk about a new chapter also at work, because 6th house is something to do with work. It could also talk about a little bit more spiritual inclination, especially if you are not that spiritual. It actually could talk about opening a spiritual business also. Also, there is a need to give up on some addiction. So obviously the addiction might be philosophical, because Sagittarius tends to be very opinionated. Okay, but also it could talk about that I'm maybe too health conscious, and then I'm gonna have to kind of, walk away from that. How are you gonna create a better future? That's the most important question. Okay, Capricorn, we've got only 3 signs left. So it's going to be happening in your 5th house, and Mars is ruling your 4th and 11th. Maybe you want to get pregnant. Maybe you want to have a child. Or maybe you're going to have a fight with your own child. Maybe there is this is a time for your child where there is so much emotional turmoil and ups and downs going on. And you are worried about how to kind of support your child. Maybe actually it talks about investments in a sense that I want to be investing into properties and I want to be renting them out. Fifth house is the rent. And of course, Mars rules the 11th, which talks about money. And the fourth house is, of course, properties. This could talk about actually, I'm getting in trouble with my parents, for instance, because of my child's choices. Or it could talk about me standing up for myself and my child in front of my family, because we are kind of tired of being scrutinized and judged by others. It could talk about tension at workplace. Tension at workplace in the sense that you are spending too much time at work, not focusing enough on the family. Or maybe you are spending way too much time with your friends and then your partner is jealous about it. But also it could talk about the need to actually learn to spend a little bit more time with your friends also, or just to get your romantic partner involved in those activities also. Because Mars rules your fourth, and it could talk about relocation for Capricorn also. It could talk about that you are having this intense desire to have sexual relationships with others. It might be that, you know what, I kind of feel like I've been excluded from those, and then now I want to live my second childhood. Okay. It could talk about that you just want to be having more fun, which is not typical for Capricorn, right? Because they are very hardworking. They are very responsible. But this Mars and Uranus might want you to enjoy life a little bit, to have fun, to let the inner child get out, basically. It wants you to do more hobbies. And then eventually you might realize that I can turn my hobbies into a profession if I want to. It can actually talk about that if you have got children, that your children or one of your children, sorry, is going to break up with a partner. And maybe the child wants to move back to your home. And then it might frustrate you. And how am I going to take that? Is it good for me? Or, this type of question actually can happen also. It might be that just you want to be buying a bigger apartment. It could actually talk about having to spend money on the property also, because electrical matters in the home environment is just keep breaking down. And it might be making me think, okay, is there a reason not to change, for instance, the kitchen, because it has been giving me such problem? So these type of things actually can also happen. Okay, Aquarius. So Aquarius, it's going to be happening in your fourth house. So loads of what I said to Capricorn also applies to you. But a little bit, maybe just a slightly bit in a different way though. Capricorn might want to be working from home, and Aquarius also might wanting to work from home also. But typically because with Aquarius, it might be the fact that I'm having arguments at work, or I just want to be kind of socially distancing myself from others a little while because I'm kind of being tired of them. It could also indicate that, you know what, I'm trying to be working from home because we are inviting a new soul into our family. Actually, this would be more likely indication of the sibling getting married or the sibling having a baby. And I just want to be, a little bit supportive. Yes, you're going to have to watch out for issues in the property in regards to, electrical matters and all those type of things, because it might be an indication that you're going to have to, somehow spend a little bit of the money. Also, it could show issues with your car and then the need to buy a new car, for instance. Otherwise, I cannot get to work, for instance. Or especially if my work is related to cars, then it definitely can talk about the need to replace it. It could also talk about certain ideas around the ways to be able to work from home or to work with home environments. It could actually talk about that I want to be selling my home. That's how the third and the fourth house actually would be playing out. It could also indicate that, you know what, I have never driven in my life. I've got my driving license, and but I found this great job somewhere, but we need a driving license. So I'm gonna actually kind of brush up my knowledge a little bit. So it could talk about kind of going to a short course, maybe a course around property management, maybe a course around real estate stuff. That's possible. Also, for Aquarius, it's very possible to go and relocate. Maybe it's because I want to be a little bit more remote and I want to be on the countryside, or the properties are cheaper at the countryside, these type of things, but that's a possibility. And last but not least, Pisces rising sign. So for Pisces, it's going to be happening in your third house. Mars rules your second and the ninth. So obviously, I'm going to be speaking about myself too, which I'm already seeing quite loads of it, how it is playing out in my life. Now, it could actually indicate that Pisces is going to be having great ideas of how to make money, for instance, in foreign countries, or how to make money from teaching, coming up with new ideas of what to teach to kind of boost the financials. It could also talk about that you just want to be selling something. You're going to have great pioneering ideas of how to gain more followers on social media, how to sell things, a little bit of a social media management here. That could be really coming into the picture. Or maybe it talks about that you wanting to study something new, so that in the later on, it's going to make you more money. And actually, it's worth investing. It's not necessarily about brushing up your existing knowledge. It might be going for something new. It's also could talk about that you unfortunately being kind of violated, and then your bank card is going to get stolen, or your bank card is going to get kind of, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? Not like scammed in a sense, or your security system is getting broken into and they're going to steal money from you. We're going to have to be very careful about it. It also might be the fact that you want to be actually publishing a book. And Uranus and Mars would be saying that, you know what, we're going to have some issues around that, but eventually the right person actually comes around. Yes, hacked. That's the word I was looking for. I think it's almost 11 o'clock at night, and I think I'm getting tired. So my English is getting rusty in the middle. Okay. Also, this could talk about that, you know what? I just want to be, again, switching off my phone, and I don't want, I just want to be kind of running away from everything a little bit. I want to be disappearing a little bit to recharge the batteries. That's also possible. And maybe you're going to do that in a foreign country. It also can actually talk about relocation. Most probably, it's a temporary one. Maybe after you would have the desire to go back, for instance, but also it's very possible that I just want to be a little bit at a quieter place. because somehow this buzziness and electricity and all these eccentric behavior of people are too much for me. So I'm gonna have to kind of cut back on that. Maybe you want to be promoting your business more on social media. This could be a great way or great constellation for it, actually. Yeah, pretty much that's what I kind of would say for Pisces. How are you going to tap into your creativity? What you want to be selling? It can be really talking about selling your ideas and visions to others. How are you going to do that? On a larger scale also. Guys, we got to the end of the lecture. So, any questions at all? Or any ideas you have which you want to share about this Uranus-Mars North-Node conjunction at all? Would I consider a relocation chart along with the natal? You know, I would, but natal is definitely taking the, it's more important, basically. In my opinion, definitely more important. But look at your natal, your relocated chart also. I tend to be looking at mine and then I find great stuff in it. But for me, the natal chart always speaks a little bit more. Great. Well, thank you everyone for being here. The best if you get your natal chart, do not only look at your natal planets, look at your progressed solar arc planets also. If the conjunction, maybe you do have got, a progressed or a solar arc planet on 18 degrees on the fixed signs. Obviously, this Uranus and Mars gonna trigger that for you significantly. And that, that definitely talks about then at least kind of like a 2-year period with something gonna fall out there. So check that out. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon. Next month, the free webinar is going to be Mars in Gemini, because obviously Mars is going to go retrograde in that sign. So there's going to be loads to mention about that. And Mars will be also out of bound as well for 7 months. So I want to shed light on that. Thank you, everyone, and have a blessed night. Take care. Bye-bye.